Bitcoin, crypto versus AI stocks. Which one's going to have the biggest run of 2026? Look at this. This is the genius whiz kid from inside OpenAI. He used to be an OpenAI researcher, right? And he's made $15 billion. This says 1.5, but this was back in October 2025. He got fired from OpenAI, left and started investing in AI stocks, right? Someone gave him 220 mil because this is the genius kid from OpenAI. And he knows more about AI than people on Wall Street. So that 220 mil turned into 1.5 billion. This was 6-7 months ago. And now it's up to 15 billion. All of Wall Street is following him. And we're going to show you what his portfolio is, right? Here's a preview. He picked basically most of the stocks Pablo picked. This just got dropped yesterday in the last 24 hours. This is his playbook. And what's he picking? He's picking the Bitcoin miners, right? A lot of these names are basically familiar to everyone here, right? So Bloom Energy is an energy stock. It's all about power. What's Bitcoin miners about? It's about power. Riot platforms, Bitcoin miner turned to AI data centers. CleanSpark, Bitcoin miner pivoting to AI hosting. Applied Digital, AI data center, formerly Bitcoin miner. Iren, formerly Bitcoin miner, turned to power hosting for AI data centers, right? There's Core Scientific as well. That's another one. I'm going to share with you folks a tiny Bitcoin miner stock that's relatively small. Depends on how you measure it, right? Today, later on, Bitcoin itself is stuck in this bear flag or rising channel, and could swing around in here, right? And most people think it's going to break down, go to the 30s and 40s. I've been of the opinion that I think we're basically bounced, touch 84 to 86. We got to 83, which was pretty close. And then I think we get one more dip down. So that was basically, comes back down to this chart, And then how much we dip depends on how much the SP500 dips, right? It's basically following the SP500, as we can see, more or less. If the SP500 comes back into its channel, which is basically, I'm going to show you guys this one. Let's say SP500, right? Does it go into its channel or not? If it comes back into its channel, then basically we are looking at a bigger drop in Bitcoin. So then I would think Bitcoin would test this 59, 60K, 58K, 58 to low 60 area. But if SP500 was to be able to bounce off, right, before 715 and keep going up, we continue the blow off top, and then basically I would think Bitcoin would basically have a lower bottom, probably just in the low 70s, and then continue up. So now a lot of the tension right now is still coming from a lot of the threat, whether you call it the 100-day yields, the 30-year yields, or the 10-year yields in the US that's threatening to crash the market. No matter which way you look at it, it's still basically an oil problem. It's still probably basically a war problem, because the rising oil price has basically caused the inflation in most countries to go up, especially in the US, CPI, right, and PPI. Every time oil drops, I just say, when they say, peace deal, ceasefire, peace deal, I just say, that's bullshit, I buy it. I just say, that's bullshit, I buy it. That's bullshit, I buy it. When it pops up, I would usually hold it for a bigger, longer run. But I do dollar cost average out, still holding more than 50% of my my holdings for the chance that we get a big pop. Because as we can see, they just like to hammer down. They just like to hammer Bitcoin price. Where is it? Crude oil price here. Like every time, as I've been showing you folks, every time we get up in crude oil price, they hammer down around this $100 area. They basically can't stand oil being around $100 area, so they keep on hammering it, right? But every time it crashes, like these places, I just buy it. And now it does look like to me, if you want to call it that, this is what they call a diamond shape. This is basically, if you were to draw it, it basically goes like this, like this, like this, maybe like this, right? I didn't draw it on there because I don't think it's a regular diamond shape. Some people might call it a diamond shape and tends to resolve upwards because the war's not ended. The conflict is still back on. Now, so will dive a little bit more into the Bitcoin mining stocks today because, genius, kid wonder, Leopold Aschenbrenner has basically said one single training cluster, right, will consume over 20% of electricity in the US by 2030. That's not even including inferencing demand. So including the inferencing demand is what, like 25, 30%? Imagine 4 AI training clusters would use all of the electricity that United States uses right now. Imagine that. So he says the opportunity in power and AI infrastructure is far bigger than most realize. So I'm going to share with you folks some power stocks as well as Bitcoin miner stocks. Well, Bitcoin miner stocks are basically power stocks, okay? And I've said this before, all of the Bitcoin miners in America, in North America, in Canada as well as US are big gold mines. They're sitting on a gold mine right now because of all the protests, in the US by the communities, various communities, to not build data centers, right? Like I've said this like 3 or 4 times already. These Bernie Sanders, Alessio Ocasio-Cortez, the Alessio AOC, they call her, are left-wing firebrands, not left-wing, not right-wing, right? But I'm just saying, left-wing politicians introducing bills to pause the building of data centers, and that's going to cause people like Elon to have huge problems. So here was Elon. He was commenting on this, and he's saying, "Well, that's trouble. That's trouble. That's a lot of trouble coming because this is this Bill Sanders and AOC, Alessio Ocasio-Cortez, introducing a bill to pause all AI data centers have been built. If you can't build new AI data centers, if you can't build any new ones, and if one single AI training cluster could consume 20% plus inference, which is 25 to 30% of all electricity generated in the US, then what are you going to do? You're going to have to use existing power grid infrastructure. What are existing power grid infrastructure? That's the Bitcoin miners, right? They already have it, except they're mining Bitcoin. They already have a lot of power, like 1 gigawatt, 1.5 gigawatts, right, attached to their warehouse where they mine the Bitcoins, right? And Bitcoin's making them lose a lot of money. Like, see these stocks, they were all losing a lot of money before. Put it on a regular chart, we can see that throughout this bull run, they basically just haven't been making much money, right? This is April 25 when Bitcoin was actually at around 110K around here, and they were still losing money. And then Bitcoin crashes and tanks and they take off. Why? Because they've pivoted into becoming a Bitcoin mining into AI powered data centers, right? So with Iren, it's pulling back. Basically, look, it's forming this consolidation. I think it's going to break through. And so does this Leopold guy. So usually you pull back, retest the breakout, retest this breakout here. So what, to 44, 45, 46, 44 to 46 area somewhere here, freak people out. People sell, think it's a double top, and then takes off again. Well, what if you're wrong? Nothing I say can be 100%. But this Leopold guy, he seems to know what he's talking about. He's made $15 billion now from 220 mil that people gave him to manage. And Iren, he held it, and he's increased his big bets. He's actually added to it in his last quarter or so, which means he was adding from January, from here to March, which is here, right? That's his quarter. He was adding in here. So if it comes back to the 40s, right? Sure, that's another chance to add more to a name that a guy like an insider from OpenAI has been adding to. So the other issue, which I believe is, I think Jensen Huang said it. Jensen Huang complained about how electricity usage will be 1,000 times more. 1,000 times more. Let me show you. Here it is. So Jensen Huang, which is again the founder of NVIDIA. Does anyone know more about electricity, power, and AI than he does? He says the amount of energy we need for computing is probably 1,000x more than what we currently have. Jensen Huang saying this. What does Leopold say? Right, one cluster will use something like 1/4 or one third of U.S. current electricity. Right, one single AI training cluster. Imagine if you have 20, 30, 40 of those, right? So where is the world headed? It's headed to here, right? So, and what's Elon's solution to this? He says space is the only way. Why is that? Because Elon has basically been building these space launches with Google, right? Doing these deals with Google. So Elon's solution to this electricity power grid problem, infrastructure problem in the US, is to not build it in the US, but build it in space. He's going to use SpaceX to launch, right, data centers into space, right? Google in talks with SpaceX, right? And Google is joining them to launch data centers into orbit. As I've explained this before, basically the heating is no problem because it's much colder than it's basically negative 200 something degrees Celsius in space. It's basically absolute freezing temperature, below it's what they call absolute zero temperature. And also power is plenty because you have the solar powers that can just catch the rays from the sun without being filtered and bouncing off the atmosphere. So you get more powerful rays from the solar panels as well. So he thinks that's the way to do it. So whatever the solution is, they're thinking of launching rockets into space, launching, things into space, launching rockets, data centers into space. Before you do all of that technology, which isn't even remotely proven to work yet, why not just use electricity that's already existing here? And those businesses are losing money. Which businesses are they? They are the businesses that are the Bitcoin miners. They already have the electricity. So this is Iren, for example, on the pullback retest. It goes into the 40s. Be a nice entry. Look, if I get it wrong, okay, but at least it's the same entry as that Leopold guy, right? So Riot platforms, right, was talking about it for 2 weeks, pushed up here, and because the stock pullback last week basically didn't punch through, so did a top and tail. So now we're due for a pullback. Maybe gets to $20, maybe gets to this probably $19 around here, right? We've got this top here. Yeah, look, a series of tops here, $19, tops here, 18 and a half, 19, right? Probably somewhere 19, 18 and a half, and then take off, right? They don't go up, as you can see, they don't go up in a straight line. Nothing goes up in a straight line. Mara as well. But once this breaks, it'll be a major break because I'm showing it to you guys on a log chart. Let's look at it on a regular chart. That's going to be a big run, right? And then Mara, of course. Mara is the one he hasn't named because Mara has been slow in pivoting. But I think that's where the potential is. So folks in my Discord were asking, why would you pick Mara? Because they haven't made the biggest commitment to pivoting yet. What I'm saying to them is this: I think every one of these Bitcoin miners in North America will pivot. Every one of them. Mara is the slowest so far, but it will pivot, and it's the lowest so far. That's why when it takes off, if it goes like this, then that's what? Then that's like a 5-6x run. And then if it takes out a new all-time high, it's basically a 10x run. Why? Is because all of these companies are sitting on a gold mine. They're just not using it. They're sitting on lots of electricity, but they're mining something that's losing them a lot of money right now, which is Bitcoin. So unless Bitcoin goes to 150K, 200K, they're not really going to make a lot of money, right? So then what happens, they're better off switching to being an AI data center. They'll make a lot more. So then what you ask, you go, well, Pablo, then what happens if Bitcoin does go to 140K, 150K on the off chance? Then these data centers, then Mara is going to win as well. If Bitcoin takes off to 120, 300K, whatever, then Mara comes up to about here, $34, which is where it was, right, back in 2024 when Bitcoin was high. Now, if Bitcoin doesn't make a move, if Bitcoin tanks, go into a bear market, and AI, which I think will continue to pump until the blow off top finishes. The last thing that stops to pump and the entire market is going to top on is AI. Then it's basically this. This is where it's going to be, right? This is where it's going to be. And basically, if Bitcoin goes up, then small Bitcoin miners like Mara would benefit. If the Bitcoin doesn't go up, they pivot to AI, right? Which all the other ones have done. Mara is just slow in pivoting, but I think eventually it will because it's staring at losses. These shareholders are basically like, we're losing money every day on this. right? So eventually I think it'll pivot, and when it does, boom, should get straight to here, like 2 or 3x would be a minimum expected move once it starts moving. There's just so much need for electricity. All these Bitcoin miners are sitting on a gold mine, so to speak, metaphorically. So EPRD, as we can see, right, in 1 year, it's basically made from a $4 to $48, 12x run in 1 year. So this is the kind of things that can happen, right? But I'm not saying to get into APLD now because it's had its 12x run, but there's a smaller stock that's similar to APLD. It's a Bitcoin miner that's turned into an AI data center that I found, which I'll share in my Discord. But for you guys watching for free on the on public platforms, I've already shared with you things like Riot, Iren, Mara today, right? Which have strong cases, and I shared it with you guys before, right? Leopold revealed his playbook to the world 2 weeks beforehand, right? And so here is what he's actually shorting. So he's actually bought puts or sold out of all these, like Nvidia, the semiconductor ETF, basically even Micron and Intel. Now what I've been saying is to my Discord is that Micron, right, and possibly Intel on the pullback can still be entries. Right. Wait for a pullback. If they've been up 6 weeks in a row, 6 green candles, 7 green candles in a row, just use some common sense and wait for a pullback. But the more they are, the way I've been describing these American semiconductor chips is that they're in their 3rd or 4th quarter. They're joining, like if you're joining the game, if you get into them, you're joining the game at halftime or the 4th quarter, right? So there's maybe 1 quarter left to play, or maximum 2 quarters left to play in the game. So there are still probably gains, but not huge. Where I think the gains are is if you join in the 1st quarter or at the start of the 2nd quarter. Which semiconductor industry is at the start of its 2nd quarter right now? Well, the semiconductor industry, CPUs or GPUs, that's still early, would be in the Chinese CPUs and GPUs, because they are just starting their run, well, probably not now, but they've started it later than the US ones. And this is one of them, right, on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, SMIC 981. And also this one, Hua Hong, which is 1347. That's the code on the Hong Kong Exchange, which everyone can get to. And that's a nice bottoming tail, looks like. Not bad here. Okay, I'll catch you guys next episode.